Good evening. I'm Casey Nolan. Welcome to Stay Tuned. Tonight's topic, the word that is tonight's topic, means a lot of things to a lot of different people. In fact, if you Google tonight's word, you're going to find a lot of different definitions just on the first page. The word is sustainability, and tonight we are going beyond the buzz of that word. We've got a lot to talk about, so stay tuned.
A lot of people are trying to put into practice sustainability. The people who are installing solar panels or windmills, young people planting vegetable gardens, commuters riding trains or buses or bicycles, and politicians and planners and governments.
The result is this plan.
Earlier this year, Mayor Slay unveiled the city's sustainability plan.
Some of the objectives will be achievable soon. Some will take a very long time. Others are aspirational, but all of them will make our city a better place.
This plan does talk about alternative fuels, recycling, greenhouse gas emissions, bike paths, and parks, but it also talks about addressing issues of education, crime, jobs, even obesity. That is, it's a plan for making a better city, a better life, under the banner of sustainability. If you're confused about just what the term means or is supposed to mean, you're not alone. A couple of years ago, East West Gateway asked St. Louisans, what comes to mind when you think about sustainability? Their graphics show they got a lot of different responses, but a significant number of people said, I don't know. So let's go back to the gardeners and do a little digging. These young people probably have a clearer idea of what sustainability means to them. They're college students from around America and around the world who are in St. Louis attending the Clinton Global Initiative University. Yes, that Clinton, Bill, and this Clinton, Chelsea.
All of the students at CGIU come to CGIU having already made very real commitments to make a difference, whether it's on their campus or in their communities or on another continent.
This was their final community service work at Gateway STEM High School, but they gathered in St. Louis because they've got these projects.
Benefiting from the environment.
Beekeeping in Liberia,
So we're working on
recycling in Arizona,
co-founded a group.
women's empowerment in Ethiopia. Ideas intended to make better communities and a better sustainable world.
One of the things that I find most exciting is how unburdened the kids are by history. So they're not biased in the same ways that so many are to think, we have to have, a coal-intensive, oil-intensive, natural gas-intensive energy system.
It's not really for them about tearing down, but building up from somewhere else.
Completely, and reimagining our energy future because they're not burdened by our energy past.
Simply put, sustainability means not using up the resources we have, but leaving things like clean air, clean water, quality living spaces for the next person, the next generation, the next century. The problem isn't really expanding the meaning, but turning some of those don't knows into can-dos. For Stay Tuned, I'm Jim Kircher.
Our thanks to Jim for starting us off tonight. Now, if we're to believe our friends at Nielsen, chances are you're watching tonight's show with your cell phone or your iPad or your laptop open. That is a good thing. We want you to continue to do that because we want you to be a part of this show, and you're going to use those to do it. And here to tell you how to do it is Mr. Ed Reggie. Ed?
Thanks, Casey. That's right. I'm the one who's interacting with you when you're Facebooking or tweeting throughout the show tonight. And I want to hear from you. In fact, sustainability, we saw in the video. What does that mean to you? And what does it mean to the region? I want to hear from you. And earlier this week, we actually posed that question to our Twitter folks, and they responded. Already we've heard that projects like the Loop Trolley Project and Metrolink, that's sustainability. Well, we want to hear from you. Keep them coming. We have two ways. You could use the hashtag, which you see on your screen right now. It's Stay Tuned STL, or you can go to our Facebook page and put a comment right there, and we'll use those throughout tonight's program. In fact, let's see what you're already saying.
Okay, we're in the studio with Todd Swanstrom from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Thanks for being here with us to help us get started on the in-studio conversation. But first, I mentioned definitions in the beginning of the show. So let's give you one of my favorites, actually. This actually pops up first on that Google page I was talking about. Sustainability, the capacity to endure. The trusted folks at Wikipedia tell us. Do you like that one as well?
Well, you know, the original definition that I think goes back to the term is the ability to do development now that meets the needs of people now and doesn't compromise the needs of future generations. So you're not eating the seed corn, you know. So I think, you know, the same idea of enduring, yeah, of being resilient, of being able to sustain yourself, yeah, over time. But I thought you were going to ask me for a definition, and so.
Well, go ahead. Do you have a better
No,
one?
that's exactly the question I don't want, because this is one of these terms that's become so broad and it has so many different meanings to it that I think it's very difficult, especially for the public, you know, to get their arms around it because it means so much. But just because a term doesn't have a simple definition doesn't mean it's not a useful term. Like, I remember taking a college course in the word beauty. No one can define beauty, but we know beauty is an important concept, right? And justice. So sustainability is like that. It has many different meanings to many different people.
We saw in Jim's piece there that started the show that when they did some research, what the answers were varied when people tried to do what you just did and define it, but the number one answer was, I don't know. Does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me because I think it's become something of a buzzword, you know, and the more it's used, the more it's used in many different contexts. For example, I mean, one way we talk about it, those of us who are in the policy wonks, we talk about the triple bottom line, right? It has to be the 3 E's. It has to be environmentally sustainable, it has to be economically sustainable, and it has to be equitable. It has to be socially sustainable, if you will. So already you've got 3, you know, big spheres to talk about, and the idea is sustainability is where all 3 meet. And, you know, I think for John Q. Public, that's a lot to grasp, right? And how do you define it simply? There is no simple definition to try to meet the triple bottom line.
Are we in the midst of a sustainability movement here? Are things active and dynamic on this topic right now?
Definitely in the St. Louis region. We have this 1STL, which grew out of a grant from the federal government, but which, by the way, was a grant that came from HUD and DOT and the Environmental Protection Agency. So all 3 are trying to weave together these functions, right? You can see the connections. And of course, also the city of St. Louis has its sustainability plan. So there's definite movement, and there's a lot of green jobs that are being created. I think at the grassroots level, I think you see people doing sustainability in a very concrete way, right? By community gardens and having, you know, community-based agriculture or solar panels. So there's all sorts of ways that people can get involved.
So has environmentalism just been rebranded?
I think there was a problem with environmentalism, which is environmentalists were viewed as people who just looked at nature, just at the environment, and kind of looked down on people who were concerned about jobs, let's say, or other concerns, right, or equity. And so I think the environmental movement has recognized, and part of the reason the sustainability term took off, it was one way with dealing with the isolation of the environmental movement is a bunch of tree huggers who looked down on people who are concerned, labor unions or civil rights groups. So sustainability, by, you know, involving these other dimensions, is a way to draw a broader coalition around the concept. And I think it makes sense. But it's a difficult job, right? To weave all those things together into a movement that can actually do things on the ground.
Of course, some people look down their nose at tree huggers, and environmentalism is very political for some folks. Is sustainability a political word?
Well, that's the question. Yeah, whether it's become yet another sort of political, you know, ambiguity sometimes is useful in politics. That is to say, a word that then you can get many different angels to dance on the head of a pin. You can get many people together, but then it has problems when you try to pin it down and you try to say exactly what do you mean by that term. So it's useful partly because it's so big, it has so much capacity.
Do you mind sticking around and we'll talk to you again at the end of the show?
Glad to do it, Casey.
As long as I budget our time correctly and pay attention to the cues.
Okay,
We appreciate
I'm with you.
it. All right, thanks, Todd Swanstrom from University of Missouri, St. Louis. Let's go right back to social media to see what you're already saying. All right, let's stay in the studio and move over to the table to talk to some folks who work in this field, work in this arena. Let me do some introductions first. Leah Detmers with Madison County, working with some initiatives there that we're going to get into. We're excited to talk about. Phil Valco, Director of Sustainability at Washington University, a lot going on the campus there. And Mary Rocchio, East-West Gateway, working on what we just heard mentioned, 1STL. We'll stick with the definition theme if that's okay. We'll show you another one here. This is from the EPA. Sustainability creates and maintains the conditions under which humans and nature can exist in productive harmony. Do you like that definition, or do you have a better one you'd like to throw out there?
Well, so one of the aspects of that I don't necessarily love is it talks about humans and the environment as these separate entities. And the triple bottom line sustainability in my mind is really strong because it talks about how the three are essentially one together. What do you guys think?
I also agree. I think it's very open and ambiguous, and it leaves a lot to talk about, especially, are you talking about sustainability within your home? Are you talking about sustainability as a business, as a municipality, as a community, as a neighborhood? It's all very different, and it's on you, on your own ownness to accept it, and what is success in your own sustainability initiatives. So it's very open to that, and Phil is right, it's all in one. It's one package. It's not siloed into two separate entities.
But the regional plan for sustainability, we're really trying to incorporate all of those layers of sustainability. So it's really about the individual level, as well as our local communities and at the counties, and then really tying it all together. And we're looking at an 8-county region. We have over 100 partners that are working on our planning grant together, and we're trying to tie together all the different kinds of planning. And so we're planning for transportation, that we're also talking about housing and the economy and the environment, all in planning for all of them together.
Let's start small and go big then. You talk about the individual. Why should this be important to an individual? Is recycling really making a difference? When I see that, the artwork, those photography exhibits with the bajillion used tires that are piled up, or the bajillion whatever, can an individual make a difference?
I think most definitely it can make a difference, because if you look at, for example, our two main components of air quality, which is building usage and energy usage behind that, and transportation, simple things like biking to work or biking to the grocery store, or just keeping your thermostat in digital mode and keeping it building optimization, that's going to keep a better air quality. And people don't recognize that if you have asthma, or your elderly mother or parent has COPD, those things do affect our public health. They do affect our public wellness. So there are small things that you can do to affect your sustainability within your own lives. Those things do count.
And you're doing some things on a little bit larger scale. Tell us what you're doing in Madison County.
So basically what we're doing is we're currently writing our sustainability plan. It's very similar to St. Louis's city plan and St. Louis County that's coming out, but it's more focused on our needs and our unique opportunities within our own county. Illinois and Missouri are very different in regulations, so we have a different perspective on sustainability, although our story is one of the 8 stories that we're giving to the regional partnership. So we do have a different perspective, but we're also giving it into a more regional community level.
So continuing to go from small to big, how do you get buy-in on a larger scale, at the university, for instance?
Well, it's challenging. I think every decision-making environment, especially the bigger you get, it becomes significantly more dispersed. So we're a small microcosm at the university within the larger region, but I think we probably suffer from some of the same challenges, where there are so many different entities that ultimately the conversation tonight is about how do we not only broaden the conversation, but how do we deepen the conversation so people really understand what we're talking about when we say sustainability. So some of the things that we've tried and I think have been pretty successful at to get people more engaged are developing programs that touch people where they are and touch the things that they interact with on a daily basis. We have a Green Offices program that touches our offices, a Green Labs program that touches our labs. We're integrating sustainability education into our teaching and our research. We're a world-class research and teaching institution, and we have, I think, a great opportunity and also an obligation to really train the next generation of sustainability leaders.
Is it easier to train the leaders and the students on Washington University than it is as the region as a whole? Captive audience there when they're paying you to be there.
That's true.
I think they're all captive audience. I mean, I think everybody's interested in really creating a good future for our region. Our tagline for 1STL is many communities, one future. And we really see that there's diverse communities throughout the region, but we have one future together that we have to plan for, and that we'll be competing together as a St. Louis region with other regions throughout the world. So I think, and I know our board members are really interested in leading the region in finding what that future is and how we can best integrate planning to get there.
Go ahead, Phil.
So one of the things that I think is interesting thinking about sustainability at the regional scale is this idea of competition with other regions and the notion of resiliency. America and I think the world at large has had many boom and bust cycles. You think about the old West ghost towns where a town pops up, it's around natural resources that can be accessed or something else that is quickly consumed, but then the town kind of fizzles away. And for our region, finding a way to have a really stable economic base is probably one of the most competitive things that we can be doing for the long-term health and well-being of our region, of the residents in our region. And it's all three, as Todd mentioned. It's the people, it's the environmental base that supports the people, and it's the social interaction, the economy that ties us all together.
But not everybody is bought in. I mean, let's have some.
It's true.
We
Right.
got to be real here, right?
Right.
I mean, what do you do about that?
Well, I think you go from the frame of mind and you want to do a paradigm shift. What is important to you as an individual or in your business? Whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're in the health field, whether you just have a sick child or elderly parent at home, what's going to make your life more efficient? And how can that efficiency be promoted in other aspects of sustainability? For example, law enforcement, people say, oh, how can we make law enforcement more sustainable? Well, we have a great medication drop box program in Illinois across the river, and that actually cuts down on our heroin epidemic, but it's also good for water quality because people aren't flushing their medications down the toilet. We all have one common goal. It's just what your goal is. It's one systematic, sustainable goal. And so it's feeding into that one overview of the community, but it might achieve one of your goals. So it's partnering and seeing a big picture. And I think that's an important and paramount idea about sustainability, is that it's a coming together of everyone's goals and reaching one giant sustainable effort, and promoting that within, and how efficient can you be with your social equality, with your environment, and with your economy.
We're a country of individuals here,
Right.
with a strong individualism.
Right. So I think one of the things that I want to build off that you mentioned is if you work in this profession, you get very effective at tailoring your message. You try to read who your constituent group is that you'd like to build their buy-in, try to understand where they're coming from, and then you tailor the message to the things that, to the best of your ability, that you understand that they are concerned about. So there are certain aspects of sustainability where there's a very strong economic case. So for certain populations, if I'm trying to build buy-in, I really focus on that aspect of it. Other populations, I might talk about the social or public health gains of sustainability. Yet other populations, I might talk about the environmental gains, talk about biodiversity and air quality and things that might not resonate with some of the other populations.
Is it an awareness of how much we are interdependent with breaking down a former buzzword almost, silos, fewer silos in our lives?
Certainly. That's really at the heart of our regional planning effort, is really, we have several partners that are here tonight with us, and I was just going to say, that's collaboration is key. You mentioned collaboration, and that's really what we're with the regional plan. We're really building a framework and a groundwork for how we're going to move forward. So at the end, we're going to have a plan with common goals, and so how we're going to align those and moving forward. And it's not just about the environmental piece. There is an economic piece, a housing piece. We're looking at, one of the important things about sustainability is we've seen that our region has grown in a way that we don't have affordable housing throughout the region. So we can better align our housing and transportation planning to really plan better and have that affordability around the community.
In just a minute, we're also going to talk to the mayor about the city's plan. But before we do that, thank you all for your time. Excellent insights. Let's go back to social media, see what you're saying. Well, we are honored to have the Honorable Mayor Francis Slay here on Stay Tuned tonight. Thanks for your first appearance on Stay Tuned. We appreciate it. Let's go. We're sticking with the definition theme, and I think this is not Meet the Press, so don't worry. This is not a gotcha, but we're going to use your own words here. We have a definition of sustainability from the mayor, a way of balancing people's economic and personal well-being with the natural environment in order to achieve more livable, safer, healthier, and a cleaner city. That covers a lot of ground. It may be a little more broad than what a lot of people think of when they think of sustainability. What do you think of, just kind of off the top of your head, when you're talking to folks about sustainability?
To me, it's about just having a more livable community for more people, in terms of having a balanced and healthy relationship between the people, their well-being, and their prosperity, as well as the natural environment. I mean, these are all things that are important to our community. We want everyone to feel welcome. We want everyone to feel like they have opportunity in our city. We want our city to be safer. We want it to be cleaner. We want it to be healthier. And we want it to be a place that is more fun and people enjoy living in, but also from an environmentally responsible approach.
We saw in the piece, we had some video of you holding up that plan. It's not a small plan. That's a lot of work that went into that. Why? Why is that so important to you and for the city?
Well, this was a plan that was put together by the community. This was not our plan in the sense that we dictated what was going to be in there, what we needed, because we know sustainability is a broad term. It's something that is subject to a lot of interpretation, and everybody has their ideas. So we took this on the road. It took us 2 years to go out and do town hall meetings, and we had summits. We did engagement through the internet. And we came up with this plan that is the community's plan, and we adopted it. There's over 300 different goals and objectives that we hope to achieve over a period of time, up to 20 years in the city of St. Louis. And then we set out 29 specific action plan items to accomplish within the next 5 years. So when we did this, we wanted to make sure this was the community effort, and we had a community buy-in, because we didn't want to tell people what we thought sustainability was. But of course, our approach has been and will continue to be the triple bottom line approach: environmental, economic, and social well-being of our community.
You kind of mentioned it there, but who that's a lot, what you just talked about, and it's over 20 years. Who has to be involved? How does this work?
The entire community has to be involved. We want, first of all, city government, of course. We've got to have all the directors of city government involved in a green team. They are going to be telling us what they can be doing and how they can work in their own departments to make government more effective and more responsive, and also more energy efficient and environmental responsible. We also want the community to be engaged. We have our plan online. We want people to talk about it. We're going to have another summit in the fall. We want people to be engaged. We want neighborhood organizations to be involved. We have this toolkit for neighborhoods that we want to be able to tailor to the specific neighborhoods to see what they're interested in doing and how they can get involved in a plan that they can work on themselves in their own neighborhood to help make their neighborhood a more livable place and more environmentally responsible. We want businesses to be engaged as well. They can help a lot of ways, but even just every person in our community can help in even a small way, whether they're composting or whether they're recycling more, or they're using compact fluorescent bulbs instead of the bulbs we've been used to using for so many years. A lot of different things, using mass transit, riding your bicycle to places, walking. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do individually to not only improve our own health, but also to be more responsible to our community.
It's a city plan, but do you see this as a larger issue than just the city?
Oh yes, we do. We want people to be engaged, and we know that this is not a silo. The city doesn't sit by itself. We're part of a whole region, a whole nation, and of course the entire earth. And there are a lot of people out there working on sustainability. We want to cooperate and coordinate with them, but we want them to know that the city is engaged, involved. We have a plan, and we want to be. If someone else has a plan, we want to make sure our plan and their plan, that we're working together to achieve a better community for more people in our region and in our community.
That's a good vision. Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks for being here with us.
Enjoy it.
We'll go back to social media. Okay, we are back in the studio over at the table. No, I did not pick the music, so if you don't like it, don't blame me. If you do, tell all your friends. Before we do another definition, which is tonight's theme, let's go around the table. Emily Andrews, U.S. Green Building Council, is with us. Thank you very much. Don Conway Long, anthropology professor with Webster University. Also, Lori Deffenbacher, coordinator of teacher education for sustainability at Webster University, and then Mr. Tim Dorsey from MATEC, which may not be the best way you're known these days, also known as Jack's dad.
Jack's dad, right.
we use Twitter on the show,
right,
which your son is the founder of,
right.
So we're happy to have you here.
Well, thank you.
Let's go back to our definition of sustainability. This one we pulled from the dictionary, Meriam Webster. A method of harvesting or using a resource so that the resource is not depleted or permanently damaged. Kind of along the same lines there. Tim, we'll go back to you because you recently were in the news not just for your son, but because you also were installing some solar panels
right.
on your business that you've had for 30 plus years. I gotta believe you're gonna save some money there, but is there another reason? Why? Tell me why you wanted solar panels at MATEC.
Well, solar panels just made sense for us because it was, we actually did it for our granddaughters. They're twin granddaughters, 11 years old, or 10 years old, I'm sorry. And it just seemed the right way to go about, trying to help the system out instead of just burning up the system, I guess. So
being a grandfather made you think about sustainability?
We thought about it more and more. I guess you do the, you do more and more as you get older, and you think about your kids, and then you think about their kids, and you just try to use what you can and reuse what you can instead of just throwing it away, I guess.
We do throw a lot of things away. Yeah. I mean, our culture is pretty disposable. Is that fair?
Correct. And I think the definition that you just gave is very helpful there to think about, because when I teach indigenous cultures as part of my many courses at Webster, and one of the things that we learn from indigenous people is that use is fine of the resources that they have in their environment, whatever it may be. Overuse is abominable. You should not do it, because it's not thinking through the implications of the overuse, because you want to have the tree bloom the next year, you want to have the corn growing the next year. So the way that definition that you pulled out of Meriam works is perfect for thinking what sustainability should be meaning.
So where did we go wrong, and how do we get back? Is that too big? Is that a whole other show?
Well, I think that the definition that you talked about, and the one that we use a lot, is meeting the needs of the future generation without compromising our resources for future generations, and that's kind of what Don's talking about. I think one of the things I like to think about with our kind of you mentioned disposable culture. Mm-hmm. I think we have a knack for that. We've gotten pretty good at it. I think that one of the things we need to rethink is having a more restorative economy. Why do we have to base the way we make money on new things? Why can't it be repairing the things that we already have, reusing the things that we already have? Buildings, for example. We have many, many buildings in the city that need our love. Let's not tear them down. Let's invest in them. Let's make them efficient homes, healthy homes, where kids can grow up and be safe and get good educations and live in great communities.
Even if it's a terribly inefficient building, and we've got this LEED platinum building that's going to go in its place.
Well, compromises. That's what you're talking about.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, is that even more green to use the old one?
Well, a lot of people like to say that the most sustainable building is a building that already exists. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that. There's an embodied energy, people say, in those in buildings that are already built. The things have been harvested already, and a lot of old buildings have actually been built in a way that uses simpler technology that most of us understand. Things like natural ventilation, or my home was built about 80 years ago, and it has this amazing technology, a shade on the back that shades the sun in the summertime, but allows the low winter light to come in and warm the house. So pretty straightforward things.
Lori, we're talking about on less of a micro scale. Some of the bigger things we're talking about is kind of almost like a cultural shift here. I don't know. How do we have to start younger?
Well, yes, we do. And our niche in the School of Education at Webster University is specifically aimed at the teachers who are going to be preparing the students of tomorrow. And we start as early as preschool, just trying to help these students understand what sustainability is. I'd like to go back to that whole concept of the definition, though, because what I found when I started doing this program 4 years ago is that the word sustainability was so overwhelming that my students couldn't really grasp what it meant. Many of the things that you've talked about today are things that are the initiatives of sustainability. They're the issues, they're the different things you can do. But understanding why we do them, I think, is the piece of sustainability that gets buried. So we talk a lot about the principles of sustainability, and we look at the interconnectedness, the dynamics of the systems that are connected. We look at global citizenship. We look at the importance of place, understanding where you're from, historically as well as environmentally. We look at the cycles, the natural cycles, the world cycles, the health cycles. We look at the respect for limits, and then ultimately the social equity issues as well. So we've kind of distilled those principles of sustainability so that people have something to hang their hats on. And when we do that, we then invite people to look at what they already do and to see that really, in fact, you're addressing sustainability, but you didn't have the vocabulary. And I think
but not everyone is. I mean, and a lot of people will kind of push back and say, if this is going to cost me more money, is this worth it? Is it worth it as a businessman? Is it worth it in your field?
Well, the solar panels, for our case, it'll zero out our electric bill for the year. So it just made a lot of sense for us. So, and then plus you're giving back too. So it was pretty rewarding, I think. And then, so it was for our business. It was the right time. Small business, real small.
But there's also the external costs, the costs that we don't consider, the impact on our health when we choose plastic, to the world, to the oceans, to the fish, to the things that we eat. We don't always think about that as being a cost, but it is.
To our resources that you were talking about earlier.
Right, just this water bottle right here. It's water taken from some other location rather than our faucet, which is pretty good water, made with a petroleum product. That is an extremely unsustainable way to think about doing the thing that we need to do every day, which is to get water. So I'm going to challenge the station and say, rethink this. That needs to be taken out of the throwaway culture, because to throw away the petroleum product after we take that small amount of water out, where is it going to go?
I'm not sure Tim didn't bring that in himself.
No, I didn't.
Very good. Well, we have to leave it there. We have to stay on time tonight. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you very much. Let's go back to see what you're saying on Twitter. Okay, let's go outside of the studio. We'll go to take a little trip via Google Hangout to Chicago for a national perspective. Let me introduce you to Josh Mogerman from the National Resources Defense Council. Josh, thanks for being here. And just like I did with the mayor, I'm going to use your own words against you as we stick with our definition theme here. According to NRDC, a sustainable community is one that can continue in a healthy way into an uncertain future. Kind of controlling what you can there, it sounds like a little bit. I'm curious, what are you seeing around the country in terms of this movement, if that's not too large of a word to use for it?
Well, I think we find ourselves sort of in a moment of change right now. There's a lot of uncertainty about our energy economy. There's a lot of uncertainty about our resources moving forward. There's a lot of uncertainty about the weather. And all of those things really sort of refocus our attention on a lot of the issues we've been talking about tonight on sustainability, and making us think about, is there a better way for us to do what we're doing? Can we continue to enjoy the American lifestyle, but just do things better and eliminate some of the waste in our daily lives, in the way that we do business, in the way that our country operates? And I think that's sort of the heart of what we're talking about now. To me, what's exciting is even in this moment of uncertainty, we have access to a lot more information that allows people to engage and to be much more informed in these issues that we're really grappling with right now.
Let me ask you about the mood around the country in light of a little state legislative work in Kansas and Missouri. I believe it actually has passed in Missouri, but there is an effort at the state level to prohibit any state funds from being used on any sustainable development. Clearly, not everyone buys in that this is what we should be doing, and some obviously believe it would be a waste of taxpayer money. How would you gauge the mood nationally?
Well, unfortunately, some of these issues that we're talking about have been politicized. When you talk about renewable energy, there is a lot of disagreement over how to move forward and address climate change. We're still seeing a huge amount of public push for action on this issue. But when you take it back and you take it out of these issues that have been politicized, I think we all agree we need clean air, we need clean water. And what's the best way to move forward on these issues? You had brought up some of the economics earlier, and unfortunately we find ourselves, when these issues are politicized, that too often things are sort of narrowed down to jobs or the environment. And one of the things that I think is interesting in sustainability discussions is that oftentimes the most sustainable solution to the problem also brings a lot of economic benefits. Here in Chicago, we're having flooding problems right now, and there's a huge discussion here about the adequacy of our water infrastructure to deal with storms that we're seeing increasingly here. The solution that we at the Natural Resources Defense Council have been advocating for a lot is green infrastructure. It's using natural surfaces to absorb and filter water rather than building out more treatment plants and more tubes and pipes and those sort of things. It turns out that that's a really effective way to do something. It's significantly cheaper than building all of those things, and it brings an amenity into people's neighborhoods that improves quality of life. And oftentimes, the sustainable solution is just that. It's cheaper, but more importantly, brings a quality of life that I think we lose otherwise.
Can you give us a global perspective? How is this issue viewed around the world?
I was in China for some work not long ago, and I was really amazed to see in Hong Kong the #1 issue that is public debate right now is air pollution. The central government there is very concerned about anything that can destabilize things. And right now, if you look at Weibo, which is the Chinese version of Twitter, the trending topics that they're talking about are PM 2.5. It's talking about those little bits of soot that impact human health. So even in places where we as Americans tend to look and say, oh, they don't care about sustainability, they don't care about the environment, it's getting harder and harder to move forward without addressing those issues. And it's an issue that we're seeing all over the world. The same thing in India and other countries that we operate. There is a growing desire for a better way, and a way that allows for a better quality of life, not just now, but in the future.
We referenced a poll earlier here regionally that said a lot of folks in the St. Louis region don't know. That was their answer, I don't know, when you said what is sustainability. Do you find that in other places?
Yeah, you know, we've covered, I think, tonight the wide range of what sustainability can be, and so many of those problems don't exist on a human scale. Things like climate change or deforestation. These are things that you and I really do have a hard time understanding how we can impact things. But what's great is these are issues that we can bring down to a human scale. We can look at the products that we're using in our homes. We can look at even how we're using our bathrooms. You know, are you using a low flow shower head? You know, are there things that we can do to be more effective, to use the resources that we're all relying on in just a smarter way? And that is what I think is really exciting about social media and our access to information right now. It's harder and harder to do things the wrong way. There are plenty of incentives out there for us to get it right.
Josh Mogerman from the National Resources Defense Council, thank you for your time and your perspective. We appreciate it very much.
Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. All right, let's go back to Tim Dorsey's son's invention, also known as Twitter. Okay, we're back in the studio, back at the table. Let's do some introductions before we do another definition. We'll start over here with Tyler Meyer, urban designer, which is a way of saying cool urban planning, architecture, thinking big about cities. Maybe?
I like that definition.
Okay, very good. And Court Sloger with Focus STL, and Nate Johnson with Living STL. Let's go to the definition real quick and then we'll jump in here. Sustainability, meeting the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That comes to us from Vanderbilt University. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that part of recognizing what we need to protect for future generations, in St. Louis, I think we're really unique in that we have this incredible assets given to us by past generations. And so for me, sustainability in St. Louis is not simply just protecting for future generations, but also respecting what has been built here already.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, the St. Louis region was not built here by accident. It was built here because we're at the confluence of two rivers. We have abundant natural resources, both water and agriculturally, and just quality of life. And civilizations have lived here for millennia. And this particular area has unique things to it that are worth protecting. So we've got these beautiful historic homes. We have a lot of great institutions, both cultural and educational. We have all these things that we've built up, and we owe it to people to preserve it for the future generations. I mean, if you guys have ever been to like Bellefontaine Cemetery, there's, you see Choteau, you see Laclede, you see Barnes, you see Anheuser, you see Lemp, and you see all these names, and you realize how much effort and time and passion was put into building up this region. So I think we owe it to future generations to show them, what we can do and what people have done in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. As a real estate broker, I love the fact that I get to sell St. Louis and the beautiful architecture that we have. And it's a shame that sometimes we see buildings being torn down here that should be preserved, that could be preserved, and that really takes away from the flavor and the character that exists here in our region. And that's something that cities and around our country wish they had. You know, I'm sure we've all heard where they're exporting some bricks from St. Louis from torn down buildings to other parts of the country because of the quality of the brick that was built here. So from a sustainability standpoint, that's what I believe sustainability certainly is.
Right, those are both great points, and I think what's important is that we develop a definition for St. Louis that's rooted in St. Louis, that's part of our culture, and I think that's a great way to galvanize all the people we have here. There's a lot of passion on this issue. I mean, you're going to see that here and in the whole show, but how do we get people to buy into it and know what to do? So to me, the particular definition isn't as important as making it important to the people in our region, and that's not just the city or a particular municipality or a state, but our whole area.
So you don't have to convince people that we should be more like Portland and all drive Subarus and be dressed like we're ready to go camping at any moment.
Well, there's some great things going on in Portland, but we also have great resources here to protect, and it's more about getting the knowledge about those and how we can take advantage of those, and really, it's a chance to change the perception of our city outside, but also on the inside.
I think that sustainability is not an obligation. I think it's an opportunity. And I think that we have an opportunity when we're talking about sustainability, whether it's with One STL or with the St. Louis City's regional sustainability plan, is to think about how we are all one community. And the things that come up in sustainability sort of beg the questions about, you know, what do we value about our region as a whole? You know, how can we work together to protect this? Because we are one community. We're not, you know, yes, we're 8 counties or however many counties. Yes, we're this many communities, but altogether, we are one St. Louis region. You know, we have to think about how do we protect all these resources that we all share, this history that we all share, and this culture that we all share, and how can we think about it as an opportunity as opposed to an obligation?
Well, I think that a lot of it has to do with perception and awareness. I think that there are a lot of people in our community that just don't understand what sustainability is. You know, we've rattled off several definitions tonight, and I agree that it is an opportunity, but I think that there are ways that we're missing where we could be showcasing the opportunities. A great example is when I see a trash can that's labeled landfill. I think that hits home with people, and it makes them make a choice. Okay, am I throwing this away? It's filling up the landfill, or could I recycle it? You know, things like that are just little simple things. I know in some places you go around the country, when you get a plastic bag at the convenience store, you have to pay $0.25 for it. You know, it's not a huge expense, but guess what? Do I really need a plastic bag for, you know, my bottle of water or for whatever it is that I'm buying? And I think that it's a knee-jerk reaction that you go to the store and buy something, no matter what you get a pack of gum, they're going to stick it in a plastic bag and hand it to you. It's really not necessary.
Well, and it's a true cost. I mean, that's the thing, is that we've gotten used to certain things. We just don't think about the cost because it's not in our face. You know, it's not part of the message, but it costs time, effort, labor to make that plastic bag.
Right, so we have to show people the value in following what these sustainable practices. So we've talked about a lot of frameworks and plans that different people in the community have produced, which is great that we're all thinking about that, but we need to really give people tools to implement those, and so they can quickly see the value, but also regionally think about the value that you gain over time. So if we think about Generation Y, this is a generation that's buying houses now, they are interested in smaller places, public transportation, maybe not every day, but at least the option, and investing in green infrastructure or sustainability. So something like the Great Rivers Greenways is a great example of a positive for our region that people have shown that they're willing to invest in.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and you look at some of our neighborhoods, they offer people that live there an opportunity with mass transit to maybe downsize to one car, because you can take public transit to certain areas. If we had more connectivity in our region, then that would be spread out across our region. So you wouldn't have to live in a specific neighborhood to be able to only own one car or own no cars. And that's, I think, the challenge that we've got right now.
Well, we promised we would bring Ed back. We're going to do that, but before we do, we'll leave you with an action item here. Thank you all for your time and for your insight. We have a full screen. We can show you this. The City of St. Louis is having a competition involving sustainability that I believe we can reference here. Yeah, St. Louis neighborhoods. Submit your proposal for a sustainable neighborhood project. I think I just revealed how bad my eyes are to be able to read that from across the room. Let's go to Ed, who hopefully has something close he can read. Ed.
I do, Casey. Listen, you know, the Twitterverse has been really conversating about this. And so I want to encourage you, keep tweeting us. I want to give you the website for our after show. It's 9net.org/stay tuned. Stick around, go online. We have an after show as always on Stay Tuned. And some of the themes that you have been tweeting us actually have to deal with both the corporations and small businesses getting involved in sustainability. That really is something that's really trending right now on Twitter. But let's see also what you're continuing to say on Twitter.
I'm very proud of myself. I promised Todd you could come back if I kept us on time tonight, and you're back, so I guess I did my job. So I have a couple of things I want to run by you, but before I do, in the interest of not running out of time, what's percolating in there in your head as you've listened to our conversation?
Well, what I thought was fascinating was when you asked Tim Dorsey, why did he put solar panels in? He said, because I have a grandchild now. And, you know, I was kind of taken aback. I'm not sure about you. And when he explained it, it made sense to me. And part of what sustainability means is people do not just live in the present. They are living in the past and the future. It's like one continuum that we're part of. And we're not just pleasure-seeking, living in the present animals. We really care about the future. And as I've gotten older, I realize that more and more. I do things now that I know probably I won't be around to see the real impact of, but it's still meaningful to me. So I think it really matters, this idea that we're over time, we're stretching our time horizon in our actions.
But are you only doing that because now you're, not to put you in an uncomfortable situation, because you have you're affluent enough to feel that way? Is this something that only folks who don't have more basic problems in their lives can think about?
Well, I think, unfortunately, it's gotten framed that way, but I absolutely do not think that is the truth. Because if we're going to have a prosperous economy, it's going to have to be an economy that learns how to use resources in a strategic and smart way. And if we're going to have jobs in the future, future jobs are going to have to be, many of them have to be green jobs. So this kind of trade-off, environment versus jobs, I think is largely a false trade-off. That doesn't mean that there aren't upfront costs sometimes. You know, you have to make a sacrifice now in order to be more sustainable in the future. So, but I think it's been a problem that the environmental movement sometimes has focused on the environment without thinking about questions of social equity, without thinking about jobs, and we have to put them all together.
Can a city really be sustainable, or can it just be less unsustainable?
You know, sustainability is a goal out there somewhere, right? And we'll never know if we ever get there. So it's the journey. It's not the destination. So you just have to struggle where you are. And I thought it was also wonderful, just this idea that St. Louis has this great built environment, and I've noticed that since I moved here 12 years ago. This wonderful buildings, wonderful parks, wonderful bones that we have. And it hurts me when we throw it away. And I think people are feeling this attachment to what's here. And there's a St. Louis way to this, right? Which is this tradition, valuing the tradition and passing it on to the next generation.
And Tyler brought that up at the table there. You taught us about our story when you were here last time. Is there a sustainability that is uniquely St. Louis that we need to try to figure out?
Well, I think part of the story very quickly, was the meeting of the waters. We are the place where the largest rivers in North America meet, and the rivers have been viewed as something that divided us, and if we can view it as something that unites us, that can be part of our identity. And I also think this historic built environment, this wonderful 19th century built environment that we can preserve and build on.
Okay, we'll leave it there and ask you to stick around for the post show. Find us online, because we're going to talk more with the mayor who stuck around. We appreciate that. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned. The Affordable Care Act has far-reaching implications for our health care, but many small businesses are concerned about the impact of Obamacare on the bottom line. Next time on Stay Tuned, we're exploring the ACA as it relates to small businesses. It's all part of our ongoing coverage of health-related issues, so we hope you'll join us and stay tuned. What are the issues that are important to you and to the St. Louis region? Share your insights. We want your ideas for a future episode of Stay Tuned. Call 314-512-9009 or email us at staytuned@ketc.org. Would you like to be a live audience member on Stay Tuned? Email us at audience@ketc.org. And you can always connect with Stay Tuned on Facebook and Twitter. This is the part of the show we never prepare for, and it seems to go the best. So just so everyone's aware, you're still on the record, but for the internet. So take that as you will. I'll just open it up to all of you. What do you wish you would have said that you didn't have time to say?
I wanted to raise some questions about,
yes,
about the discussions about economy not being.
Now, wait, just for the record, are you bringing this bottle back just to with me the whole time? Just to make sure we get the point. Yeah. Okay. Which Washington University, I believe, got rid of water bottles. That's right. Okay. Yeah. Very good. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Professor.
The discussion about the intersection between economy and jobs, and then the environment. I want to suggest that I think we haven't talked enough about the fact that ongoing growth is unsustainable by definition. And we can't
like the boom towns that we were talking about?
Right, like that. We can't continue to grow economy in so many ways as if it's going to be a never-ending process. We need to start reconsidering what a sustainable life for individuals means as well. I need more time in my life to play a harp, to exercise, to hang out with my grandkid. Things of that nature. Those are kinds of choices that we're not even putting into this discussion yet and are very, very important.
I'm sorry, you're wearing a mic, but I think we couldn't hear you. So if you just say everything you just said again, that would
over
no. But the point you were making was that, like the boom towns that were brought up earlier, you're saying this.
Our economic structure by itself is a boom town in a lot of ways, even though it's this kind of boom town, but still, the idea that we can always produce more stuff to satisfy ourselves as consumers. Not a good idea. But that's not the way we can go.
Facet of it. Yeah, I think another challenge that we have has to do with the equality and the cost involved with sustainability. I mean, it's great to say that we should all have community gardens and we should buy local and we should do this. It costs more money to do that, and that's not sustainable, because if you're sitting here and you're making a choice about whether you're going to make your house payment or your rent exactly. Versus, oh, you know what, I'm going to buy local. I mean, it's not a tough decision for a lot of people. But when you have enough money to make those choices, that's great. And that's why we see a lot of times that, the sort of sustainable movement seems to be, on the forefront of people that are of means, who have a little bit more money. And you often, and those that are on the lower end of the financial spectrum are left out.
Well, I think that, you're absolutely correct, but we need to change the incentives in the way because really what happens when somebody does, let's say, plant a garden and buy locally, and you're saving money in other spheres. People just don't realize it, right? If that could be internalized, it would actually be, viable for people in low-income neighborhoods to do it, but because, in fact, some of the most energy-saving folks in the entire region are low-income people who use transit more, right? Who walk more, and they don't get anything for it. They should actually we should have a system that rewards them for their lifestyle, which is actually saving us congestion on the roads and pollution in the air. Right. So the problem is the incentives aren't there to add that up in the right way.
Right, and one reward might be, something we talked about briefly is investing in education in our region, so that, because in order to be sustainable, you have to have the ability to get the right job, and we need people to not have to make choices on where to live based on education. So our city is growing beyond the boundaries that it should. We're getting larger and larger, and our resources are stretched. And a lot of that's based on the fact that we don't have the educational opportunities that we need for people at lower income levels at the heart of our city.
So so is that government planning? Then you're talking about that stretching, and you can build as far as you want, I guess, here. And when you look at some places like Portland, they have an urban growth boundary that was established 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. That sounds. One, is that what you're talking about? Is that a factor? And I don't.
Yes, it's definitely a factor, and we're living in a place that the population is not growing. So we've really got to reconsider: do we need to use up more and more land to support the same number of people? So it's a good thing to talk about for all of us. I mean, what do you think? Is it okay to move to a far-off suburb because your kids need a better school? You can't argue that fact.
You're saying incentivize with education.
That's one thing, but I think we have to do a lot of things. We have to look at all the systems that make up our region and communities.
There's there's a lot of pieces that go into too. A plan that decides that you're going to have urban growth boundaries may or may not be politically soluble in the St. Louis region based on our history and culture and things like that. Are there other options we can look at that kind of sort of work within what conversations are we already having, and use the language that speaks to people who may live out in exurban areas or areas that they live far out and they drive. How do you speak to them about ways to be sustainable? How do we use a language that we can speak amongst ourselves, so that we all realize and get on the same page?
That was kind of where I was trying to go with that. I mean, because to a lot of people, that sounds like a lot of control and a lot of unnecessary government. I said I was going to be quiet. Sorry. have the talking stick.
Well, I agree with you. I think that one of the big problems is that this isn't systemic at this point, and that's why education is so important, and not necessarily university education, because we're starting with kids who are 17, 18, 19 years old. Our teachers that are coming up now, we have to prepare them to have a curriculum that helps people have the knowledge, the skills, the values to live sustainably, personally and professionally, so that the next generation is giving us the decisions in business, and they're giving us those ideas for community from a foundation of understanding about what sustainability is to them. And I think somebody mentioned it really, I think it was you, that it's the place that matters, and it has to be really place-based for what is sustainability in St. Louis. And when you talk about a garden, it isn't just about saving money on food. It's about getting closer to the land. It's about understanding the insects that are pollinating. It's about being part of the process.
I loved his answer of why did you get solar panels? Because you said your grandkids. Yeah. That's a total teachable moment. It has nothing to do with energy efficiency or really cool things and a building component on your house. It was a teachable moment for you and your grandkids. And I could not agree more with her statement about education, because I think workforce development right now is lacking in system thinkers. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's something that you just want to wait to teach in high school as a consumer ed credit. It should be integrated from preschool on up into the higher levels of learning to be a systems thinker and to know that whatever you do here is going to impact your entire environment and your entire economy and yourself and your social equity. So I just loved your answer about, I did it for my grandkids.
Well, and it's not just environment, but I mean, we've learned a lot of lessons economically about what it means to be unsustainable. And we're sort of living through that, and it comes from the same mindset. How do you look at something as a system and think what I do now affects how it is later, and to sort of think about that whole cycle when you're making these decisions. And I agree, I think this is something that we need to be teaching people from the earliest times, because that's how we're going to get this ingrained into, that's how behavior is going to change, that's how our culture is going to change.
But has this been politicized, as the gentleman from Chicago said, so that in Missouri it gets wrapped up into this Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative? I mean, I think that...
Yeah, if I wasn't clear earlier, our staff says, we just figured this out tonight, that it has passed in Missouri that no state funds will be used for sustainable development.
I mean, how do we address that?
Right, how do you depoliticize something that has gotten such an edge?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, I think ultimately we try to bring it to the most consensus-based terms to make the case.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, so for me, I think the central tenet of sustainability is everything comes from somewhere and goes to somewhere. And I think most people can understand that. And we need to help people understand where the from is, where the to is, and what the implications of that from and to are. And it has impacts on rural, Republican-leaning communities. It has impacts on urban, Democrat-leaning communities. And if we can get everybody to connect with the from and to and the impacts that those things have on them, I think we'll be more successful in making it a consensus-based issue that people actually want to work on together and not talk about party affiliations.
Or you move to Illinois.
I think that this is a quality of life issue. And when you start talking about it as a quality of life issue, whatever that means to you, wherever you live, you want to live somewhere where you're happy, right? And what makes you unhappy? Traffic? Maybe a long commute, maybe poor air quality. I mean, that makes you unhealthy. These, what makes you happy? Being close to a park, having good schools, having a job that pays well, living in a house that is efficient and saves you money on energy bills. I mean, those are the things that you can talk about that everybody, I think, can connect with. And I think that when it comes to politics in this town, we have very strong corporate leadership that is focusing on sustainability in their business. And I think that we need to call on them to, communicate this, in a way that isn't political. The St. Louis Regional Chamber runs the Green Business Challenge, which is incredibly successful. People are incorporating sustainability practices in their ongoing operations of their daily business. And it is because, in part, it's a groundswell from the bottom up. Individuals within that company that are asking for it, they want to be attractive to potential employers, young people that might want to live here, that might want a good quality of life. But it's also coming from the top down because it's about responsibility to our region. And when those two things come together, you have a lot of success. And I think that's where that initiative has been really successful. That's where green building in general has been successful in this region as well. And when you start talking about it in those terms, it's less political and it's more like, this is just what we do to live in a good place.
Let's leave it there because our stream is going to run out and we don't want to leave people hanging. So we'll address these issues on Twitter, if that's okay. I feel like you're in charge.
That's great.
Okay.
I give you my blessing.
Okay, good. We have a Twitter blessing.